Good morning. So we are ready to transplant our seedlings, and I wanted to talk to you real quick about how we started them. These guys are 15 days old. You can see they've grown quite a bit. We've had them inside under lights, and we did the soil block method for these. So I like the soil blocks method because it allows for the roots to not get root bound, unlike seedling trays. After a while the roots go round and round and they get really tight and root bound, but with the soil blocks the roots kind of have their space to spread out, and so it's a lot better for the plant than when you go to transplant. They have an easier time in the transplanting process and getting established in your garden through using this method of soil blocking. And there's two different kinds of soil blocks. There's these big ones that make the big soil blocks, and then the little ones. I use the little ones for the small seeds, for the really tiny seeds, the ones that barely need any cover for germination. And then the big blocks we like to use for the bigger seeds like squash and beans and peas. And just for the purposes of this video, I'll show you real quick how to do a soil block. So we just get a seedling mix from the store, like a bag seedling soil. And then it's important to prepare it by putting it in a container and wetting it. And so you want the consistency of nice damp soil, but not too wet, so then when you squeeze it, you don't want water dripping out of it. And so I'm squeezing this and it's holding together without water dripping out. And so that's kind of the consistency you want. And then to do a soil block, it's pretty straightforward. You just want to fill your soil block with your soil medium, and you want to pat it down really well. So really fill it up and pat the soil in there. And then you'll be using trays for your soil blocks, but just so you can see, I'll do it on this lid here. It's kind of like a stamping method, so you're going to push down on this handle while you're pulling up on this lever here, and it creates the soil block. And there's these little dibbles that make holes in here for where the seeds go. So that's pretty simple. When you're watering the soil blocks, you want to make sure to water around. So when you're doing them on a tray, you want to leave some space on the edges. You don't want to water on top, because if you do, then you risk the soil blocks breaking open. So water around the edges, and when the seedlings are young, especially while they're still waiting to sprout, I like to mist them on the top to keep the seeds and the top layer moist. But just watering around the edges would be sufficient for your soil blocks, because the soil through capillary action is going to take up that moisture and keep them wet. And so we have to water them about once a day, sometimes twice a day if it gets really hot in the house. And now seedlings need about 75 to 80 degrees to germinate most things. If it's not that warm in your house, you want to consider putting a heat mat underneath the seedlings when you sow the seeds. And then as soon as the seedlings sprout, you want to take the heat mat off so that you don't risk burning the roots. The other important consideration is your light fixture. So in the house we have a pretty wide light fixture. It holds multiple bulbs. We use the cool daylight bulbs, highest Kelvin unit possible, so that you get the broadest UV spectrum for the plants to mimic the sun. And it's important to have a wide fixture so that it extends the length of what you sow. If you have just a couple of bulbs over a tray that's like this big, what's going to happen is your plants are going to all, come up and try and find the light and go sideways. So you want a wide light fixture, and when you have the lights over your seedlings, you want them just a couple inches above the top of your seedlings. You want the lights really close, and then you raise the lights as the seedlings grow. The lights are important to have, and not just start your seedlings by a sunny window, because they'll get really spindly. They don't get quite enough light just by a sunny window alone. Thinning is important. If you sow multiple seeds in a cell while they're young, it's important to snip out some of the smallest looking plants and leave one per soil block, so that you can have one thriving plant per soil block. We haven't thinned ours yet, but we're getting ready for planting, and so I'll just show you real quick by taking a soil block out of here. I'm just coming in underneath the soil block very gently with my hands and kind of separating at the bottom to take out a pea, and you can see the really nice root structure in here. It's not root bound at all, and all I had to do was slide my hand underneath and gently pull and tease it out, and the roots came right out. So this is what's going to get transplanted today, and I have full faith that it'll do really well based on how we were growing it with a lot of love and care and intention. One other important consideration to take into note when you are starting seeds inside is to have a fan on them. If you've ever started seedlings indoors and you've noticed they kind of flop over after a while, if it seems like the middle of their stem gets kind of pinched and they just collapse, that's called dampening off, and it's a soil fungus that can thrive if the soil is staying too moist and not having enough airflow. So to help get more airflow and to minimize the potential of dampening off, it's important to have a fan on the seedlings. In addition, the fan really helps strengthen the seedling stems because if these seedlings were growing outdoors, the wind would be doing a lot of that for them and helping them maintain a good, strong stem structure as they're growing. But we can do that indoors with the fan, and it's important to see your seedlings move a little bit with the wind. So that's about it for seed starting. We do give these seedlings some nutrients as they're growing. We did a brewing of our homemade compost tea, and we watered the plants around the edges with the compost tea as well as sprayed them. And a good compost tea or some kind of fertilizer is really nice after your seeds have germinated and they have their first true leaves on them. They would really enjoy a boost of nutrients to help them grow before you plant them out. And that's about it.